I've been listening to the audiobook of the Voyage of the Dawn Trader. And in this book, there's a part where they go to a place where slaves are sold. And the slaves are freed by order of the king, Caspian. And then this man who's been profiting from selling slaves has to return all of the ill-gotten gains from selling these slaves. And he says to the king, he says, I'll be beggared, as in I'll be broke, when he's forced to give all that money back. And Prince Caspian says, you have lived on broken hearts all your life. And if you are beggared, it's better to be a beggar than a slave. And I like that because it illustrates a point that I've realized in my life to be quite true. Sometimes you have to go backwards so you can go forward. There was a point in my life where I made more money, but it wasn't really coming from the right places. It wasn't really something that was foundationally rooted in good fundamentals. I had been taking care of my mother, so I was collecting this money from the government to be her caregiver for a period of time. And then I had my other job that I worked, like my normal job. And so I had kind of two incomes coming in, right? But then I had my mother living in my house with me, and I had these other responsibilities that I had inherited. I had all this other stuff going on, this baggage. So I had a lot of income because I had two jobs technically. And you would have looked on the surface at that time in my life and you would have thought, oh my goodness, he's doing pretty good. But the truth was I was underwater because for everything that was like a step forward, there was two steps backwards. And I was just digging myself deeper and deeper into a hole of debt and being busy doing things that kept me from enjoying my life. And then there was a period of time where I had to kind of reset, where the rug kind of got pulled out from under me, and I didn't have that second income, and I had moved to a different place, and a lot of different stuff happened, which at that time was very difficult. But I came out on the other side of it, and then the fundamentals were good on the other side. And I had to kind of get that old stuff out of my system. I had to break away from those old things that were defining my life, and then get to where it was just honestly me and the things that I had honestly earned and fairly gained. And things get better when we really level set with ourselves and we start to say, okay, even if I have to cost myself some convenience in the short term, I'm going to do the thing that's going to give me a good foundation in the long term. This was true going through a marriage and then a subsequent divorce. I realized in many ways I had everything I wanted. In many ways, it all looked like life was good and I had the right stuff all figured out, But then there's a certain lack of shared values, a lack of foundational principles there to tie it all together. And sometimes you can be so close to what you want that where you are is almost indistinguishable from where you're trying to go. And yet it's a world apart. It's like the difference between two people that both drive super nice cars. One of them bought the car with cash, and he spent 10% of his net worth to get it. The other guy was already in debt, and then he signed up for a loan that he can't afford. They're both driving the same car, but they're not in the same position in their life. And the truth is that guy who's underwater probably isn't going to be able to get whole until he swallows his pride and he steps back and he gives up those things that are outwardly making him look good so that he can work on himself within. That's hard, but it's also important. And it's fascinating when you think about how close you can get in terms of appearance to the destination you seek, when in reality, you're really far away in terms of actually making progress. There's these little mazes where you have to roll like a marble around in a maze to get the marble to where it needs to go. You can potentially get that marble just one little wall away from the place where you're trying to go, the end of the maze. But it's a dead end. It's not where you actually needed to go. So it doesn't really even matter how close you are, because there's that wall of separation. There's that little something that stands in the way and makes all of that apparent progress fake. And you know what that is. We all know those things. When we hang on to things that are fake because they make us feel like we're closer to where we want to be than having nothing at all. But the truth is, sometimes we have to start over. And we have to do it right the second time. And doing it over and starting over and making it right when you have taken a wrong turn somewhere along the way is not as impossible as it feels. Sometimes the journey to wholeness is further and longer than you probably wish it were. But it's not as impossible as you might fear. It's like this computer I just bought a little while ago. I get a computer and it's got a dead graphics card in it, right? And the computer boots up just fine. It's just the graphics card doesn't work. So I can plug my computer screen into the motherboard. That'll work, right? So just a dead graphics card. Graphics card looks nice. It's shiny. It's pretty. The rest of the computer works great, right? But the dead graphics card isn't something that I can fix. I don't know what's wrong with it. So I have to send it back. I send it back, and, it's not the end of the world. But it's gotta get that UPS sticker stuck back on there and get sent back to some place in Kentucky, and I get my refund, and then eventually, I'll get another one. That's just an example, though. I could have that computer sitting there in my living room, ready to go. But if there's that one foundational, major thing wrong with it, it's never going to be able do what I wanted it to do. It's never going to be able to fulfill its purpose because it isn't what it needs to be. So first we have to get to the point where we are the right kind of people, where we are the individuals that we need to be inside, where we've let go of the things that are holding us back, the little lies we tell ourselves because it's easier to believe a lie than it is to face the truth. It's been attributed, I believe, to Benjamin Franklin, who said that men would rather bear the oppression of poverty with the hope of being rich than to face the reality of being free but poor. And he said it's easier to suffer burdens while they are sufferable than it is to cast off old chains and secure new guards for one's future security. And it's very true. We would rather hang on to a lie that's convenient and comforting than to work meaningfully to change our course in life. We always know the truth when we stop, when we pause, and we say, okay, well, what's the reality of this? What fruit does this bear in my life? What is the reality of the circumstance that I find myself in? We'll realize that some things are less worthy of our time than we thought that they were, and some things are not as terrible as we feared. But we have to be able to self-assess. We've got to be able to look honestly at things, and sometimes that means you let people go who aren't doing you any good in your life. Sometimes it means you walk away from a job that's holding you back, even if that means that you don't make as much money for a little while, then maybe you wind up doing better down the road too. But you have to trust that investing in yourself today is worth it. And it'll pay dividends down the road if you take that first step. But that first step is just being able to acknowledge not what you want to believe, but the truth. To the best of your knowledge, the simple, unaltered truth based on logic and observation. What is the reality? And if the reality is you've built a house on sand, then you might not want to fix that house. You might need to just go find a good place to build and start over and let that old house crumble into the ocean because it just wasn't meant to be. That's okay. I think that we see a lot of people in the world who have a lot of talents of all different sorts. But one of the most rare talents is the ability to be honest with yourself. To not fall into the trap of deceiving yourself and settling for something that looks like it's almost good while you use smoke and mirrors to distract yourself and others from the reality that it's not. what it seems. It's better to have nothing. But to know that you are 100% on the level than it is to have the appearance of success when in reality, you know you've built a house on the sand. As always, good luck on your adventure wherever you find yourself. Till next time, thanks for watching.